Good morning, my dear friends. Welcome to the studios of the Evangelist Ministry. Welcome all of you, my friends. From the studios of the Evangelist Ministry, we spread the good news about Jesus Christ and His saving grace. Our mission is to lead people into a growing relationship with Jesus Christ. My dear friends, the subject of this morning is the believer's expectation. Let's open the Bible and we read the book of Philippians chapter 1 verse 12 to the 21. The Bible reads this way. But I would you should understand, brothers, that the things which happened unto me have fallen out rather unto the fruiters of the gospel, so that my bonds in Christ are manifest in all the palace and in all other places. And many of the brothers and the Lord, waxing confidence by my bonds, are much more bold to speak the word without fears. Some indeed preach Christ even of envy and strife, and some also of goodwill. The one preach Christ of contention, not sincerely, supposing to add affliction to my bonds. But the other of love, knowing that I am set for the defense of the gospel. What then? Notwithstanding, every way, whether in pretense or in truth, Christ is preached, and I therein do rejoice. Ye and will rejoice. For I know that this shall turn to my salvation through your prayer and the supply of the Spirit of Jesus Christ, according to my earnest expectation and my hope, that in nothing I shall be ashamed, but that with all boldness, as always, so now also Christ shall be magnified in my body, whether it be by life or by death. For to me, live is Christ, and to die is gain. My dear friends, welcome all of you to the studios of the Evangelist Ministry. The topic of this morning is the believer's expectations. That's right, my friends. Expectations exist in all of us. We expecting so many things. Of course, we expecting good things in our personal life. Yes, expectation exists in all of us. We hope that people are kind to us, that we will be in good health. We expecting to have an excellent marriage. We expecting to have a faithful friends. We are expecting a successful career, good children. But the question of this morning is this: what do we do when life does not live up to our expectation. When life does not respond according to our dreams, what do we do? Yes, my friends. Life can change around without permission. Life change around without saying anything. But the question is, what should we do? In Philippians chapter 1, Paul showed us the way. His own expectation regarding places, people, and his future was crumbling. His future was going down. And still he stood on his ground. Surprisingly optimistic of this life. Yes, my friends. I said his own expectation regarding places, people, and his future was crumbling, going down the hill. And still Paul stood on his ground. So surprisingly optimistic about life. Paul was locked up in jail. It's not a best place to be and glorify the Lord. But my dear friends, he understood God. He understood God. He expected from God. But God has a plan and purpose in his life. The same way, God has a place for us. God has a plan for us and a purpose for every one of us. Yes. Paul was in jail. It's not a best place. It's not a best place to be, but God has a plan and purpose in his life. It is easy to get discouraged when you are caught up in an economic crisis. Yes, my friend, it's not easy. It is very easy to get discouraged when you are caught up in an economic crisis, in a difficult marriage, a job that is not very gratifying, living in a neighborhood that put you in a test on a daily basis. Well, my friends, let's take it from Paul. Paul was a very positive person. He said that his suffering helped the gospel to advance. One thing he has in mind. But I wish you should understand, brothers, that the things which happen unto me have fallen out rather unto the advance of the gospel. Chapter 12. My dear friends, now he said, now I would have you to know, brothers, that the things which happen unto me have fallen out rather unto the progress of the gospel. Perhaps people have probably not lived up to our expectation. You see, friends is not too many friends. You have friends when you're okay, when you are healthy, when you have money, when you have position, you have friends. But what happened when you don't have health, when you have no money, when you have no job? What happened with your friends? Perhaps, if we're talking about Paul, perhaps people have probably not lived up to his expectation. Paul hoped other believers would encourage him. And instead, some were indeed glad that he was in prison and preached the gospel out of envy and strife. Paul said, some indeed preach Christ even of envy and strife, and some also of goodwill. It is true that some preach about Christ out of jealousy and rivalry, but others do it with pure intention and want to help. They love Christ and they know that God has given me the task of defending the good news. And instead, there are others who do it just to compete with me and because they envy me. So Paul says, so if God gave them the same gift he gave us who believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, who was I to think that I could stand in God's ways? It's the book of Acts, chapter 11, verse 17. But what was the apostle's response? He said, what then? Only that in every way, whether in pretenses or in truth, Christ is preached. And in this I rejoice. Yes, I will rejoice. Verse 8. Verse 18, sorry. What then? Only that in every way, whether in pretense or in truth, Christ is proclaimed, and therein I rejoice. Yes, I will rejoice, and I will continue to enjoy myself. In the same way, we must think about our daily life. This is an example what Paul think about in the worst time of his life. So we have a good example. In the same way, we as a Christian, we must think about our daily life. Perhaps it is an uncertain future, the loss of a spouse, the loss of a child, a job change, and an economic crisis and a health crisis. But Paul knew that at any time Nero could order his execution. However, he declared, for to me, to live is Christ, and die is gain. What about you, my friends? What do you think in the middle of your problems right now? You see, Paul said, according to my earnest expectation and hope that in nothing shall I be put to shame, but that with all boldness, as always, so now also Christ shall be magnified in my body, whether by life or by death. Verse 20. And he said, Paul said, for to me to live is Christ, and to die is gain. Verse 21. But many of the believers at the same time of the problem desert and quit the church, quit the gospel. They never wait for the will of God. So the problem is this. They have a disease, bad economy. It's not to stress us, but to purify our faith. What I'm trying to tell you, my friend, that many believers in today's day, at the time of the problem, the first thing they do, they quit the gospel. They quit the church. They never wait for God's will. So the problem, my dear friend, is not to make you sick. The bad economy is not to distress you, but to purify our faith. My dear friends, what should we do? Expectations exist in all of us. We hope that people are kind to us. that we will be in a good health, have an excellent marriage, faithful friends, a successful career, good children. But what to do? What do we do when life does not live up to our expectation? When life does not respond according to our dreams, what to do, my dear friends? Well, my dear friends, Paul shows us the way. His own expectation regarding places, people, and his future is crumbling. It's going down the hill, and he still stood on his ground. So surprisingly optimistic about life. Paul was locked up and in jail. It's not the best place to be. But my dear friend, Paul understands. He trusts in God, that God has a plan and a purpose in his life. No question about it, it's easy to get discouraged when you are caught up in economic crisis, in a difficult marriage, a job that is not very gratifying, or neighborhood that puts you in a test on a daily basis. But my friends, Paul was a very positive person. He said that his suffering helped the gospel to advance. One thing he has in mind. He said, but you should understand, brothers, that the things which happen unto me have fallen out rather unto the advance of the gospel. He said, now I would have you to know, brothers, that the things which happen unto me have fallen out rather unto the progress of the gospel. My dear friends, we can get into our conclusion this morning. Yes. One thing, Paul was for sure, according to my earnest expectation and hope, that in nothing shall I be put to shame, but that with all boldness, as always, so now also Christ shall be magnified in my body, whether my life or my death. He said, for to me to live is Christ, and to die is gain. Yes, my friend. Paul said, for to me to live is Christ, and to die is gain. My dear friends, many believers at the time of the problem, they desert. They leave church. They leave the gospel. They quit church. They never wait for the will of God. So the problem, my dear friends, is not to make you sick. Bad economy is not to distress you, but to purify our faith. My dear friends, let's think about Job. Job's case. Sometimes God allows circumstances that test faith. We must also know that being a believer does not mean that you will be free from problems. Paul said it's very clear. If I live, I want to do it to serve Christ. But if I die, it is for profit. He said, for to me to live is Christ, and to die is gain. My dear friends, we can get into a conclusion this morning. Here again, Paul said in verse 20, according to my earnest expectation and hope, that in nothing shall I be put to shame, but that with all boldness, as always, so now also Christ shall be magnified in my body, whether by life or by death. The question is ours today. Paul's only expectation, let's think about that Christ be glorified and that Christ be honored at all costs in his daily life. My dear friends, it's a good example how to react in times of need. I know that we all have expectations, but what to do when life does not live up to us? Life do not really answer to us the way we want. When life does not respond according to our dreams, what do we do? Let's think about Paul. God bless you, and God bless America.